You're listening to Materials Business, the podcast where engineering, leadership, and innovation meet diversity and inclusion. Hosted by Monica Hernandez, engineer, entrepreneur, and industry advocate. When we embrace different perspectives, we create stronger industries, smarter solutions, and lasting impact. Now, let's dive in.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when are you watching us, and thank you for being part of the material business community. My name is Monica Hernandez, and I'm your host, and I have a really special guest. Austin, thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
So Austin and I are going to discuss something that comes up fairly often in our technical expertise, but we haven't had any guest that speaks about it, and is how we protect our IP, how we protect everything that we are doing with so much hard work in this technical field, and all the things that can go wrong if we don't do it. So when he reached out and we were talking before this, I was like, perfect, this is really good, because even with some of the latest speakers that we've had here, or guests, I guess, that we've had here, they are either engaged into some of their research and development, or they are already really far out into the process. And when I talk about this subject, sometimes it's like, we don't know. So, and business owners, you and I know this, Austin, is we need to be prepared for the worst. So I want to bring that perspective from the legal side to our friends that are in the technical. So thank you for being here. Austin, tell us, who are you?
My name is Austin Bonderer. I have been working in patents ever since I graduated engineering school. Initially started off at the patent office as a patent examiner, worked there for 5.5 years, went to law school at night, and I've been a patent attorney ever since. One of the cool things, I guess, is that I am listed as either an examiner or a patent attorney on over 700 issued U.S. patents.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is.
Hard work. So what is it like if someone, and we have audience all over the world, and then maybe sometimes people don't really are familiar with the term, especially if they're in school or they're doing their research, though they should have. What is that? What is a patent? And what is that definition?
So basically, at the end of the day, it's a government issued monopoly for a limited amount of time for something that you have created.
So anything that I created that is my own invention can.
Yeah. Unless
Okay.
you've assigned it away because you work for someone else.
Okay. So we'll go into those little nuances in a little bit.
Yes.
What are the things that you see more common mistakes done in this field?
Disclosure, 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 especially with academics. I used to work for a company called Foxconn, and I would go to Tsinghua University and I would speak there and I would work with the professors. And their big thing was at the time was, we just want to be published. This is how we make our bones. And we were kind of like, well, we have a corporation that has partnered with you and, we're funding this research. The whole point is if we get more money, then you will have more research funds. It's kind of like, let's slow down a bit. It might take you an extra month before you published, but let's get this idea that you have patented, or at least the process started, and then go hog wild with your publications and that stuff.
So when is someone let's say I'm thinking about something like that. When is the best time to start digging into these areas?
Well, I mean, if this is something that you do, if you're inventing and you're developing products, you should just have a relationship with a patent attorney, and one that doesn't always charge you. You could call them up and say, "Hey, I think I might have something here. What do you think?" And the biggest, people always ask me, "How do I know if I have an invention or something that might be patented?" And I said, "Did you solve a problem?" I mean, at the end of the day, inventions are nothing but solving problems. So when you've come to a fork in the road and it took you some time or something, and then you had to figure something out, great. That's generally that might be something that's worth patenting.
I know that a lot of people in the engineering area, which a lot of the listeners to this podcast are, they don't naturally tend to have relationships with lawyers. How to overcome that? What's the first step?
Well, I mean, just reach out to one, find the one that you like working with. I mean, I get it, and I understand what you say, lawyers and attorneys. So when people ask me what I do, the first thing I say is, well, I'm kind of an engineer with a law degree. Don't run me out of town because I'm actually an attorney and everyone hates attorneys. So, reach out to one, just develop a relationship with someone that you trust and you feel comfortable with. Call several. Don't just work with one and, you know, work with one, but figure out the one that you like the best. So,
Mhm.
and sometimes I say be careful about the large firms because they're very picky about billing and those kind of things. So maybe like a medium to a small size firm. Those are the ones I typically suggest.
Yeah, and then that is a good suggestion to chop for the one that you feel the best with, and then just go with your gut feeling, I guess, because it's a field that it's not our natural state of doing things, right? So it's you have to kind of go with more personal than anything. In all those 700 patents that you have, I guess, support, for lack of a better term. Which one is the one that you remember? Like, oh my God, this was like such a difficult one, and then we pulled it off.
Well, that's kind of the hard part because, if the technology is new and it's inventive, it's kind of easy to get the patent. So, I mean, you just write it up, submit it. And if it's the simple ones that, you have to really work with. There was this one patent, I got it issued, and at the end of the day, it was a hollow tube with a hole in it. And it was basically the idea was don't use Swiffers, be able to put a washcloth and use it on the ground and then wash it and reuse it. That way you don't have waste. But at the end of the day, it was basically a hollow tube with, a hole at the end. And I got a patent on that.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, those are the ones where, as a patent attorney, even though it's simple and it's not the sexiest technology, that's where you really have to work hard and figure something out to get it allowed. So, yeah. And I guess the other thing too is like I do enjoy going to the board arguing appeals and I've never lost an appeal. Yeah. So,
That's huge.
yeah.
That's huge. So how do you do to realize, like you mentioned, if you have invented something to solve a problem, but how can people, like, is there any like pre-work that someone can do and just kind of do a soft check of, "Oh, I am inventing those glasses. Do they exist or not?" Like, is there something like that that someone can just go and do a soft check on?
Yeah. So, I mean, I suggest, hey, go out there, do a prior art search yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, you're a novice, you're not particularly well schooled in it, but if you happen to find it, then you can stop the process there.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to move forward and you didn't find something, the first step that we generally do in my practice is we get a prior art search done by some contractors because this is what these people do every day. Even though I was a searcher when I was an examiner, I searched every day. I wouldn't do it now. And the reason being is that it's a skill, it's difficult, and these people do it every day. So, it's better to go with them. And, if a client said, "But I want you to do it, Austin," I'd be like, "No, I can't do it. It's just a waste of your money and my time. We're going to hire professionals who do it, and they're much cheaper. So than hiring an attorney to do it."
That is a point. You made me remind one of the guests that came to the podcast. And then she said, when I started my practice, I started doing my QuickBooks. And I tried too, right? It was like, how hard can it be just to snap some receipts and then classify? And then when I saw all those numbers that I had to classify, I was like, a waste of my time. Someone else can do it quicker, cheaper, and with more accuracy than someone trying to make it. So yes, someone listening to this, just hire the right professional to do what you're supposed to be, focus on what you're supposed to be focusing, I guess.
Exactly. And they do it the right way. I mean, that's the other part too, is, those tax laws, you're like, is this an expense? Is this not? Like, I go through the same thing as well.
Yeah, I know, right? So how do people that start doing the process, like what is a typical timeline that someone that from beginning to end we are looking for, or it really depends on case by case?
Yeah, it does depend on case by case. So, one of the first things, I mean, if you're talking about the process of preparing the application, so generally when someone comes in, the first thing we do is do the intake, then we start the prior art search. That generally takes about 2 weeks to come in. After that comes in, we decide whether we're moving forward or not. Filing the application, preparing and filing the application can typically take between like 3 weeks to, sometimes it can take even longer because the back and forth with the inventor is very much, hey, like I'll send them the paperwork and they'll say, "Hey, you need to add this, or you need to expand on this, you need to take this out, or you didn't properly understand it," which happens. I mean, patent attorneys tend to be a jack of all trades. At the end of the day, you know your invention better than I ever can. So I'm always like, you really need to review the patent application and make sure we have everything in there. Another thing I tell people to do is take a step back, pretend like you're trying to get around your idea. What else can we put into this patent application to try to protect it? Because you don't want to just protect your product. You want to box people out of your space so they can't even get close to you, because that's how knockoffs work, right? They're close. They're not the same, but they're not. So to get it filed, you're typically looking at, can be 3 weeks, 5 weeks. It just depends on the back and forth. Then when it gets to the patent office here in the US, you're generally waiting for 2 to 3 years before they even look at it.
Wow.
Yes. So we wait, but that's the patent pending stage. It's when, as soon as we file it, that's when I tell you, go out and try to make as much money you can off of it. Because just because something can't get a patent doesn't mean it's not valuable in the marketplace. I mean, you can look around your house, your office, and there's tons of things that you paid good money for that don't have a patent on it, right? I mean, the chairs that we're sitting in, someone made them. We paid good money for it, and it works. So if it's a good idea, it's a good idea. Whether it's patentable or not is kind of indifferent. You really want the patent because it kind of gives you a protected space to develop your product. But if it's a good idea, it's still going to make money and you should pursue it.
Are you protected from the time that you file or until they actually award the patent?
They say there's like the minimum amount of protection, but there really isn't. You don't have a patent until it issues.
Mm.
You don't have any legal rights until the patent office says, yes, this is an invention. We're going to give you a patent. And once that patent issues, then you can start showing it to everybody, you know. But there's some caveats there. Talk to an attorney before you start. I mean, you can show people your patent, but don't go up to people who you believe are infringing your patent. Talk to your attorney first, because you can get in some trouble if you start asserting it too much, if it's not worthy of, like if their products don't really fall under your patent, but you still want to assert it, you can get in trouble. Another thing is if you start approaching a company, say you're in Canada, right?
Uh-huh.
There's a company in California and you're like, hey, they're using my product. You send them a letter saying, hey, you're infringing. They can start a lawsuit right then and there in California, making you fly out there, making you get the California attorney. So there's very subtle ways that we have to go through to let people know, hey, here's a patent. You might want to take a look at it, without triggering that event of there's a possible lawsuit on the way.
Wow, that's a scary. Because sometimes we are reactive, right? It's like a hey, and then we can't in this field.
Right. I mean, and this is why I tell people, like, disclosure kills patents. And I get it. You solve the problem. You solve the coolest thing. And this is the coolest thing you've ever done. It's like your baby. And what do? You want to show people your baby. It's like all the time. You're at a party, you're with your colleagues, all this stuff. You're like, look at the cool thing I'm working on. What did I do? This. And I'm like, shh, don't tell anybody. Let's file the patent application first. Same thing if you think someone's infringing, they're harming your baby, get really mad when someone does that. So you get very reactive. And that's why, it's why you should have an attorney who's like, let's slow down a bit. We'll take care of it, but let's not hit any tripwires while we're doing it.
Wow, that's a really good advice. Because sometimes, yes, we, especially because we think it is the right thing, like you said, it's your baby, so you want to protect it, and then you want to, take care of that the best way. So knowing that the timing is so lengthy, I guess, I think the best thing is to start as soon as you have the idea. Is like as soon as you have the idea, contact someone, do your research like you said before, and then contact someone and then see what are the steps that you need. Is the law the same everywhere, or this is different from country to country? I know that it really depends in the, I don't know, the boundaries of the law of the country that you're on.
Yeah. So yes, they are jurisdictional, and there is a difference. The United States is a little bit different than most of the world. So like I worked in China a lot. China is, if you publicly disclose your idea before you file for a patent application, you are ineligible for a patent, except with some, exceptions. United States goes, you have a year from your first public disclosure to file for a patent application. Because some people, again, here's my baby, look how cool it is. They start making money and now they're like, I want to file a patent. But, people rely on that rule a lot. And I can tell you a lot of people have called in saying, hey, this thing's taken off. I want to file for a patent. I'm like, when did you start selling it? 13 months ago. And I'm like, well, we're out. We can't do anything. I can't help you. And, yeah.
Wow. So really is depending on the jurisdiction. And then are you protected? For example, let's say I file in US. I'm protected only in the US, or I'm protected somewhere else?
Yes. All patents are local. So US
Local.
patent. Yeah. Now there are avenues. I mean, every time you have to file for a patent application and a patent in every country you want protection in. But if you know that you're going to go into a lot of countries, there is this thing called the PCT, the Patent Cooperation Treaty. And basically what it is, allows you to file one application in every single country of note. I mean, there's some countries that aren't part of it, but pretty much everyone you care about at the same time. So you file one application and it's almost like you filed it everywhere once. And then you have 30 months from the original filing. So if you filed in the United States first in the PCT, you got 30 months from the first US filing to file in those foreign countries. But they will treat it as if you filed it on the exact same day that you filed it in the United States.
Okay, that's a good resource to know. And how costly can be a process like this? Because,
It depends on where you're going. The United States. So if I'm not mistaken, I think Canada has some interesting laws, and like when your patent application is waiting to be examined, they will charge you a yearly fee. Right. So it's just waiting. It's waiting. They want to make sure that you're doing it, or they want to make more money, or they just want to make sure you're still interested in it. The United States, you file and then that's it until it issues. Right? You don't pay any other fees unless you ask for other things and this and that. So I always tell people to file a patent application in the United States. You're generally looking at this is prepared. This is my fees, USPTO fees, and the draftsman's fees. You're generally looking at between $5,500 and $8,500 to file. But we're going to have to argue with the office, and that can be costly. And it can vary dependent. I call it game theory. It's basically like, depends on what they do, what they give us, what we decide to do in response. Are we going to negotiate? Are we going to fight? And that determines a lot about how much the response is going to be. The other thing I always tell people is like, look, while there's one patent office, there's really like 9,000, because every patent examiner is their own patent. Right. And you can imagine with that amount of a population, you're going to have variance on the type of people that you work with. And some people tend to be a little more easier. Some people tend to be harder. I mean, there's even examiners that pride themselves on not allowing a single. I know it's
like immigration officers, right? We don't go that road, but oh my God. Okay. So now, with everything that we've said, is that worth it at the end? Like you have, created this baby, nourished this baby, protected this baby. At the end, is it worth it?
Well, I mean, so I always tell people that, look, making money off your idea is very difficult. Getting the patent is not easy, but it's probably the easiest thing that you have to do to make money off. Because if you don't have a business plan, if you're not going to put it to market, you're just going to end up with a very expensive piece of paper that might go up on your wall or something like that. Here's my baby. Didn't do anything. Failure to launch. Didn't go anywhere, but it's still there. But so it's hard to tell. I've seen wonderful ideas that haven't gone anywhere. And I've seen some ideas I thought maybe were not as great as some others, but the hard work that they put in and the patent gave them kind of that space to work in a little bit of, a little bit freer, uh, you know, you know, no knockoffs, that kind of stuff. It helped them build a brand. And then, when their patent expired, they were the name brand. People knew them. A small little tidbit though, inside corporation stuff. So if you have a patent on a product and you go to market, you should already be working on your knockoff. You should be knocking off I don't mean it like knockoff, but it's a different name, a different product, and it's going to hit people at a different price point. So a lot of companies actually do this. So, you've heard all the time that, it's basically like Lexus and Toyota or something like that. You have your high brand and people are willing to spend that much money for it, but they're not that as many. So you try to get the lower market with your own knockoff, but you're covered by a patent for both of them.
That's a really good tip as well. It's like you don't have to do everything under one wonderful big thing. It's like you can start working on the side and then get that idea the chances it deserves. So really cool, really cool. Being an entrepreneur yourself, what have you how do you get that to your own practice?
Well, I basically got into patents because my kind of got into it during engineering school. My thesis was based on an invention that I created. And I know I was the first one to do this. I went back and looked, but I didn't have the money and I didn't have the skills to get a patent on it. So basically, I created a wireless smoke detection system well before Kitty and all these other people did. And that was my thesis. I presented and everything, but it basically just took 2 smoke detectors. I don't know if you remember those when wireless doorbells first came out. So basically, the idea was that you would have a smoke detector. If it detected smoke, it would go off, but it would also release a wireless signal, which would hit the next one, which would hit the next one, which hit the next one. So your whole house would be covered. And the reason I came up with this idea is because my dad had a fire in his house. Luckily, it didn't burn down the house, but that meant that summer in Mississippi, where it gets really hot, I was in the attic wiring a smoke detection system. And that always stuck with me, how miserable that was. So I'm like, there's got to be an easier way. And like you said, it's about fixing a problem. So that's why I got into patents.
That's so cool. There is always a story. That's why we like in the podcast, we like hearing stories about people from all over. It's like, oh my God, this is so cool. So you were trying to find a better way for tradespeople to work in a more humanistic way.
Well, not trade people, more like your kids, that was kind of it. Like I was the light one that had to go up in the attic and make sure I didn't go through the ceiling, that kind of.
Wow, wow. Well, I'm glad that it didn't burn out, and I'm glad that you got a good story out of it. I'm gonna ask you a really hard question. Engineering or law?
Ooh, that one's tough. I can't really give that a true answer. And I'll tell you why. I never worked as an engineer. Day one out of college, first job was being a patent examiner, and then it's just been that the whole time. So,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Well, that's fair. That's fair enough. I have never been in that law way, so it's can't think of how can that be. But I met one time uh, a neurosurgeon that was an engineer before. He was an electrical engineer, and then he's a neurosurgeon right now. And then I asked him this question. He was treating my dad. My dad was sick, and then I was asking all these questions, and he's like, "You're so curious." I'm like, "Oh, sorry, yeah, that's my engineering brain, right? I want to know everything." And he's like, "Oh, I was an electrical engineer." I'm like, "Oh." Well, I always, when I have people that have mixed their professions, I'm like, always curious about. So basically, start early, doing your research, your pre-work, reach out to someone that has the knowledge and work on, like, the patent is not the end. That is what it stuck with me. The patent is a way to open you more doors.
Yes.
But your product has to be somehow making money, right? So it has to be that the idea, it has to be the one that drives your profit, not the patent.
Well, and you have to drive your profit. You have
Mm,
to push your business. Yeah. You have to be control over it and make it happen because if you're not going to push it, no one else is going to.
thank you. That was really good. Are services also, can you patent a service or is always a product?
You can patent a method. I'm trying to figure like what kind of service, like I guess you could patent a method of cleaning a very specialized device or something like that. But method patents I'm a little wary of them. And I tell my clients, like, we can get the method patent. It's better to have it than not. But if you can keep it a trade secret, try to keep it a trade secret.
Mm-hmm.
Reason being is like, the biggest example of trade secret is Coca-Cola. It's been around for 100 years, 100 plus years. No one can make Coca-Cola because they don't know what it is. Frankly, I assume with mass spectrometers, they should be able to make it, but they don't, right? It's a trade secret. So if you can keep it, the method of making a secret and keep it in that black box forever, you can have that leg up forever. But when you go out and get a patent for it, you disclose the way you're making this thing because you have to disclose everything. In order to get a patent, you have to teach one of ordinary skill in the art how to make or use your invention and or you. That being said, when you go to a factory, you don't know what they're doing on the inside because everything's closed off. So you have to assume that they're infringing your patent. There's no way to it's much harder to police a method patent than it is an apparatus patent because the apparatus comes out of the factory. The method stays in the factory.
That's a really good way of putting it. Okay. I had the picture in my mind when you were describing. So I think we are almost getting to the end. What will be one of the, if you want one message to get to the audience that is listening to us today, what will that message be?
If you have any belief that you might have a patentable idea, talk to a patent attorney. I promise we don't bite. Two, you can tell us about your baby and it won't be disclosed, right? We'll listen to you brag about it, talk about it, get it off your chest. Just get it out. It's like cathartic. Like I told somebody, yes. And two, like we don't bite. We'll take care of you. We will help you. And again, find one that you feel comfortable with, establish a relationship with them because generally people ask me, do I need a lot of clients? I'm like, no, they're inventors. They're always inventing. They got more and more stuff coming out. So have that relationship with someone you trust, reach out. I hearken it back to when I started my business. I did all the stuff, QuickBooks, just like you said. I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to run my business. Remember, I went to go talk to an accountant 2 years after I started my business. I paid him like $300-400. He saved me thousands of dollars a year because he knew what he was doing. And it was 100% worth it. And you should do the same if you're thinking about patenting an idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's like in Spanish, we say zapatero a tu zapato. Like if you make shoes, go make shoes. Don't invent, making wheels or something weird. So it's one of those things that I think we all entrepreneurs have been there at some point because at the beginning you try to fit all the hats, but understanding early that the need for some real advice that is truthful and then that gets you somewhere without so many hurdles, that is what we need because we need to focus on growing the business. And if you're doing all these other little things, you can't because it takes time. Like you said, it takes time to, like, even you are not doing all the research prior to. So it's like there is people already doing it. There is all that knowledge that we cannot possibly accumulate in one head.
You stay in your wheelhouse. That's what I always say. People ask me, they're like, oh, you're an attorney. Do you ever go to court? I'm like, if I'm in court, bring bail money because I'm in trouble because I do not go to court at all. So yeah.
Interesting, interesting. Well, we had a really beautiful conversation. Thank you, Austin, so much. The last question that I always ask is why should people listen to the Material Business Podcast?
Because it's teaching you things that you need to know about how to run your business and take care of what you're doing. At the end of the day, like I like to say, your work, even if it's not an invention, is still your baby, right? And you need to know how to properly care for it and take care of it. And you only know that by listening to people who have done it before. And you get that on this podcast.
Beautiful. Thank you. Austin, thank you so much. It was wonderful speaking with you. And thank you for being the first attorney to come to the Material Business Podcast. I'm very sure a lot of our audience are going to have a lot to think about this. I'm already having like 3 people on my head that should be looking at this. And have a beautiful rest of your week. And for all the audience, we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you very much, Monica.
Thanks for listening to the Materials Business Podcast. Feel free to visit infinitygrowth.ca to see show notes and explore other episodes. If there's someone you think should hear this episode, please share with them. Take care of yourself and have a great rest of your day.